The first thing Ashley remembered after waking up was the beeping sound. A calm beeping was coming from a large machine. She looked around. It was a hospital room, just as she had expected. Lately, she had been in the hospital too often. Every time she felt unwell, the ambulance would come for her. Sometimes she thought it would be better if no one came for her, and she could peacefully die in her apartment. But that never happened. Usually, her health worsened when she was in public, and someone always called the ambulance. Lately, her episodes had become more frequent, confirming her suspicion of having a terminal illness. "You scared me so much. When I saw that you were not well, I felt awful myself," said Julia, rising from her chair. Despite her words of concern, her face expressed nothing but annoyance. It was as if she was rehearsing for some role. "What? Are you just waiting for me to die?" Ashley asked. She understood perfectly well why her sister supposedly cared about her. All Julia needed was an apartment. It seemed she was waiting for Ashley to completely lose her mind, be on her deathbed, and then, out of pity, rewrite her apartment in Julia's name. "What are you saying? You're my sister. Am I not allowed to worry about you? As for the apartment, it's a completely standard situation. You already know you're terminally ill. Why should I wait for you to decide to transfer the apartment to me? And who will it go to then? You did write a will, stating who would inherit your apartment, didn't you?" Julia inquired. Once again, Ashley thought that it would be better if she quietly left this life. She was tired of constant complaints from her sister. She was tired of always being in a position where everyone needed something from her, but no one did anything for her in return. Ashley looked out the window with melancholy. At first, she didn't say anything because she didn't think it was necessary. She felt too sad inside, and there was a strong pain somewhere in her chest. She could feel this pain, and it sobered her up. Why start this conversation again? It felt like Julia wasn't coming to visit her in the hospital just to check on her sister, but only to find out what would happen to the apartment after her death. It was sad to realize that nothing would change. She felt everything around her becoming somewhat insignificant and unnatural. Her sister repeated the question about the apartment, not letting her drift into her own thoughts. "When I got sick, the doctor said I could have surgery. What did you do with your husband to help me?" "Nothing? No response? Then let's consider another situation. Even when the situation wasn't life-threatening, I needed expensive medications. What did you do with your husband?" "Nothing." "So there's your answer to all your questions," Ashley asked. She believed her question was entirely valid, but apparently, Julia didn't share the same view. "Why are you fixating on the trivial details? You have no one else but me. I didn't help you because my husband forbade it. You know we have a difficult relationship. I just wanted you to transfer the apartment to me. To me. Then, during the divorce, I won't have to share it. As soon as you're gone, I'll divorce him right away, and I'll have a place to go. Or do you want me to have nowhere to go? I already have to endure him because I have nowhere else to live," Julia said. To be honest, Ashley didn't really care where her sister would live after the divorce. In the end, she was just too tired. Her life had become jerky, complicated. Hospitals, medications, constant nerves. Was there anyone in this world who had helped her? Ashley once had a beloved grandmother, but when she passed away, Ashley was left completely alone. But now, as Ashley thought about it, she considered it almost a blessing. After all, if her grandmother had found out that Ashley was terminally ill, she would have cried and suffered. Ashley couldn't bear such a heartbreaking scene. "Do you hear me? I won't come to see you anymore. Not here in the hospital, not to the apartment. Not at all. Do you understand me? Julia rudely said, then left the room. A desired silence hung in the air. It became so calm, so quiet that Ashley felt like taking a little nap. She would still be in the hospital until tomorrow, with plenty of time to think. Lately, she had been thinking about willing her apartment to sick children. They could sell the apartment, perform a couple of surgeries, and she would give a few lives through her death. But on the other hand, Julia was her own sister. They had never been particularly close, never had the kind of sisterly bond one might expect. It was not surprising that Ashley currently had no desire to transfer the apartment to her sister. Ashley had earned this apartment through hard work, working tirelessly for several years, saving every penny. And now she had no intention of sharing her achievements with anyone. Ashley was furious, but she felt that this anger inside her was dissipating. As she learned about her terminal illness, she gradually felt herself changing as a person. She wanted to engage in fewer conflicts, stopped arguing with people, and had gained control over her emotions that no longer ruined her life. "Your sister seems to be worked up again," said the nurse, entering the room. She smiled at Ashley, replaced the drip, and spoke knowingly. She knew that Ashley didn't have much time left. It's strange. In other countries, they have euthanasia capsules so people can peacefully leave this world. And here, we have to suffer, Ashley remarked. Oh, Ashley, don't forget we're in Mexico. If they introduced those capsules here, half the country would be gone, the nurse chuckled sadly. As for your sister, don't worry. We're taught from childhood that family is important, but that's not always the case. If someone constantly drives you crazy, if there's no love from them, then to hell with such a person, she concluded. Don't worry. Take a trip somewhere, relax. Get some medication from the doctor, go with a friend who can administer your injections, and just unwind. It was a good idea, but Ashley had no chance of going anywhere. Firstly, she had no money, and secondly, she had no friends. She couldn't spend so much time alone. After all, a seizure could happen at any moment. And if there was no one nearby to administer the injection, she would be left with nothing. The nurse left, and Ashley sat on the bed, her hand with the drip hanging low. She didn't want anything anymore. She just wanted to return to her apartment, where she would find peace, where no one would disturb her. Everything around her had ceased to matter. Her head ached badly. What should she do? How could she make her remaining days more bearable? She didn't have an answer to that question. The next day, Ashley headed home. She sat in the taxi, gazing at the road. The taxi driver tried to strike up a conversation, but she didn't engage. She felt nauseous at the thought that everything around her seemed to be fading. Yes, ever since she learned that she had only a few months left, she felt like the world was losing its color. Every time she delved into her own memories, she knew she hadn't been happy. Yes, how could she ever be happy when she had made so many mistakes? She had abandoned the person she loved so much. She left him because she thought her career was more important at the time. She moved to the city, started her studies, and got a job. But what was the point? Her whole life had turned into a pursuit of money. And what was the result? She bought an apartment, but even if she sold it, she wouldn't be able to afford her medical treatment. But she loved him so much. It was the biggest mistake of her life, one that couldn't be undone. She came home, took a book from the shelf, settled into her favorite big armchair, and covered her legs with a blanket. She read, sometimes getting lost in the book's plot, and then again, thinking about her past. Could she have changed anything back then? If she hadn't parted ways with that person, he would have left her when he found out she was fatally ill. What had she done in her life to deserve such an illness? There were many questions, and as she pondered them for so long, her head started to ache again. She set aside the book, drank tea with honey, and watched a TV series. She didn't want anything more. More and more often, there were days when she didn't even want to get out of bed. She lay down to sleep but couldn't fall asleep for a long time. Ashley tossed and turned in bed. She couldn't catch that feeling when she was about to drift off to sleep. She wanted to fall into slumber because it was only in her dreams that the illness would recede. She suddenly realized she was in a forest. The forest was very dense and impenetrable, but strangely, it was quite bright here. She raised her head, and the entire sky was obscured by the tree canopies. But still, light was coming from somewhere. She looked ahead and saw a long beam of light breaking through the trees. So, she slowly walked towards it. She stepped on dry branches, creating a pleasant crackling sound. She glanced to her right and saw the Big Dipper, with its paw covering a little bear, gazing at her calmly. The mood was somewhat strange. She felt as though she was not in this world. Despite seeing the bear and later a few wolves, she felt no fear. She continued towards the light. When Ashley looked back, all she saw was impenetrable darkness, hidden behind the thick tree trunks. Yet, there was no fear, only curiosity. Somewhere inside her chest, she had the feeling that she was doing everything right, as if she was doing what was necessary. The trees gradually became thinner and more sparse, and when she finally emerged from the forest, the light hit her eyes. She shielded her eyes with her elbow-bent hand. Once her eyes adjusted to the light, she lowered her hand and saw her beloved late grandmother. "Grandma!" Ashley exclaimed and rushed to hug her. "My dear girl," her grandmother said, her voice as warm and affectionate as it had been in life. "My girl, my sufferer," her grandmother continued, still embracing her and stroking her light, russet hair. She didn't say anything more. Tears welled up in her eyes. They didn't speak, they simply stood there next to each other. Ashley felt that this was what she had always been missing, just someone to be with her. And now, with her grandmother by her side, she felt at peace. Even in her dream, she understood that she was fatally ill. But for some reason, she felt calm now. "My dear, bring me some water from the old well to my grave. Bring it, and don't delay." "I'll be waiting for you tomorrow, on Thursday," the old woman said. Ashley instantly woke up. She felt so scared, so dreadful that she burst into tears. Just moments ago, she had been fine and at peace, but now she was back in the real world, where there was only pain and a deadly illness. She looked at her own hands and then at the bookshelf right across from her bed. She glanced out the window where the dawn was just breaking. It was futile to do anything now. It was impossible to go back to sleep after such a dream. She got out of bed and went to the kitchen. Ashley took out the coffee pot and brewed herself some coffee. She sat on the windowsill and watched as the city came to life. She drank her coffee and did a lot of thinking. If her grandmother had asked her to come today, she would go. Especially since the dream had occurred yesterday, it meant she had to gather herself and go to the village today. Ashley checked the calendar. It was indeed Thursday. So, today was the day she had to visit her grandmother. She felt uneasy. There was something unpleasant about the dream. Or rather, in the dream, she had felt nice and good, but after waking up, there was a significant lingering feeling. She gathered her things, changed her clothes, packed some food in her backpack, and headed to the bus station. When she purchased a ticket, she took her seat on the bus. She still felt like she was doing something wrong, as if she had gone mad, and now these remnants of insanity were hindering her from peacefully living out her remaining months. She was just calm, her voice was so quiet. She couldn't even understand why she couldn't speak up fully all of a sudden. When she felt her phone vibrate, she picked it up. However, when her sister started talking on the other end, she hung up. She was tired of constantly emotionally servicing Julia. After all, Julia was mature enough to solve her own problems independently. You should only treat people the way they treat you. And Ashley realized this too late. The bus continued to move slowly along the road. It stopped, and the driver announced the next stop. Ashley jumped in her seat because she had almost forgotten about it and was close to being late. She got off the bus, waved to the driver, and started walking toward the village. It turned out that the village was nearly abandoned now. But back when Ashley was a child, she used to spend so much time here with her grandmother. The village used to be lively, big, and interesting for a child. She enjoyed spending as much time as possible here. She and her grandmother would knit, take care of the animals, cook, clean, and in the evenings, they would sit on a bench and watch the sun set behind the very forest she had dreamt about. Ashley stopped by an old well. She looked around. It felt as if she had become a character in a horror movie. She started to feel unwell. She took a bottle and filled it with water from a worn-out bucket. The water was murky and unpleasant. Ashley grimaced. A long time ago, even when Ashley was little, no one had drunk from this well. People told all sorts of tales, strange stories about how a girl died in this well. But no one could provide any evidence. As she grew older, Ashley realized that it was just the water in the well that had gone bad, and people were making up nonsense. Ashley stopped by the cemetery gate. The massive, towering gates adorned with crows and crosses looked eerie. Ashley felt everything inside her trembling. She couldn't get herself together. The fear, which she couldn't control, seemed to rise from deep within her. She entered through the gate, trying not to pay attention to the eerie creaking. A crow cawed somewhere. She headed toward the grave where her grandmother was buried. She poured the water into a glass and placed it next to the gravestone. "Here, Grandma, just as you asked," Ashley said. "I can't really understand why you needed this. I'm sorry I wasn't there with you when you passed away," she added with a sad smile. "But when I'm dying, there won't be anyone with me either. You were the closest person to me, Grandma." Ashley placed a bouquet of wildflowers she had picked on her way to the cemetery. She didn't want to say anything more. She sat on a bench for a while, gently stroking her grandmother's face in the photo on the gravestone. Then, she simply walked away. It was too melancholic to sit here, and it was frightening to realize that she would soon be under such a mound. She left through the gates, looking down at her feet. When she bumped into someone, she recoiled so abruptly, grabbing onto everything around her in fear. "Hey, are you okay?" "Take it easy," a young man said, wrapping his arm around her waist. When she raised her eyes, she saw the very man she had once loved madly. She clung to his chest and cried as if her life depended on it. He didn't say a word to her, as if Ethan understood that the situation of his former lover couldn't be any worse. He didn't try to comfort her, he just held her close and gently stroked her head. He just wanted her to cry it all out because it was evident she was not crying out of happiness. He simply stroked her head, allowing her to be weak. When she had calmed down a bit, he led her to his car. "All right, let me take you back to the city. Tell me your address, and I'll put it in the GPS," he said. "Ethan, thank you for enduring my tears, of course, but there's no need for you to come all the way to the city to help me," she said. But he just snorted. So, she told him her address, thinking that maybe it would be for the best. She took one last look towards the cemetery, for some reason having the feeling that she would never return here again. The car merged onto the highway. Of course, she felt much more comfortable in this car than bouncing around on the bus, but she felt guilty towards Ethan. "You know, I still deeply regret leaving you," she said. "Right now, my life is in such a situation where I shouldn't keep everything to myself. I treated you terribly, I understand that. I just want you to know that I regret it." He nodded. She looked at him and saw that he was smiling in a kind way. She smiled back. He changed the topic to work, and she supported the conversation. She understood that he just wanted to distract her, and at this moment, it was very important for her. When Ashley finally cheered up, she felt truly happy for the first time. She felt so good, so at ease that she didn't want to think about her illness or what awaited her in the future. When they arrived at her home, the smile on Ashley's face disappeared. She saw her sister, Julia, standing by the entrance. "Your sister is quite crazy. I don't think she's become any less unpleasant with age," Ethan commented. "You're right, she's only gotten worse," Ashley replied. "Thank you so much for giving me a ride. I really appreciated seeing you and apologizing. Thank you for everything, Ethan." She hugged him and kissed him on the cheek. He caressed her waist for a moment, and then she stepped out of the car. There was such a strange tension between them. They still loved each other. Both of them loved each other, but they didn't know how to fix it. When Ashley left, Julia immediately tensed up when she saw who was behind the wheel. Julia quickly got out of the car, and a crooked smile appeared on her face. She approached the car, and Ethan rolled down the window. At this point, Ashley had already entered the building. Apparently, she didn't want to witness Julia ruining the only happy day in her life. "Ethan, what the hell are you doing here? Get out of here. There's no chance for you with her. She's dying, she's terminally ill. So, don't even bother with your attentions. Get out of here," Julia said. "What do you mean, dying?" Ethan exclaimed. He was shocked when he heard this. He was also surprised that Ashley hadn't mentioned it in the several hours they had spent together on the road. "I mean it literally. She's terminally ill. She has no money for these exorbitant surgeries, no money for medication. It's just impossible to support her, she can't handle it. It's ridiculous. She broke up with you to pursue her career, bought herself an apartment, but she doesn't even have enough money for her own treatment." Julia sneered. She walked away, leaving Ethan behind. Ethan was deeply surprised by what he had heard. Julia entered the building and went up to her sister's apartment. She really liked this apartment. It was a beautiful, cozy two-bedroom apartment, almost in the city center. When she entered, she felt like she was already taking charge here. Julia walked into the kitchen while Ashley had already put the kettle on. She took some pastries from the fridge and placed them on the table. It felt as if she just wanted to break the silence with some action. "Why did you bring him here? Do you think he's going to date a terminally ill person? Seriously, idiots like him don't exist in the world," Julia said. "Or are you planning to transfer the apartment to him? Did you decide to patch things up quickly so he gets everything?" "Julia, shut up. How long are you going to mock me like this? In the end, I'm dying. I just want to spend my last months in peace. Enough, I'm tired of this. Leave. Leave so I don't have to see you anymore," Ashley said, glaring at her sister. "I won't leave you the apartment, that's for sure. I'm leaving all the money to terminally ill children. Do you understand me? Maybe they'll be able to afford a few surgeries, and someone might have a chance at life that I never had." Julia looked at her sister in astonishment. She raised her eyebrows and still couldn't quite believe that Ashley had initiated such a conversation. She felt sick, and part of her wanted to give Ashley a good slap, just like she used to do during their teenage years. "You're such a fool. Do you think anyone would want to be with you in your last days? Well, if you're refusing, then be it. You're on your own," Julia said. When she left the apartment, Ashley felt better, as if Julia was a bundle of unpleasant energy. It was as if Julia carried all the disappointment and pain with her. As she walked out, even the atmosphere around her improved. Ashley felt herself getting lighter, and the tension inside her started to ease. She remembered Ethan, and it brought a sense of ease and warmth to her heart, as if nothing had happened. She recalled her past, how happy she had been with him, and how she had been joyful about life before making her biggest mistake. She sat on the windowsill, counting the days that had passed since her departure to the village to visit her grandmother. It had been quite some time, but she still couldn't understand why her grandmother had asked her to bring water from the well in her dream. Was it just a dream? Had her ailing and inflamed mind conjured it up for some entertainment? She couldn't see any other explanations. Next to her, there was a mug filled with cocoa. She felt her interest in life slipping away. It was as if something was slowly draining her, and she could no longer feel joy or happiness. It was as if she couldn't even muster the effort to try. All that was left for her was to count the days until her own death. Would it really end like this? Would her life turn out to be so futile and useless? When the doorbell rang, Ashley jumped in her place. She was sure it was her sister. Julia would start talking about how guilty she felt, shedding tears, and suppressing her emotions. She would say that they were sisters and should be together. And again, it would all be done solely to secure the apartment. Ashley approached the door, stood on her tiptoes, and peered through the peephole. To her surprise, she saw Ethan. "Ethan, please open the door," he said. She turned the lock, and the door swung open, revealing her beloved holding an enormous bouquet of flowers. She didn't know what to say. He gazed at her with such love in his eyes that she felt like crying. Perhaps he didn't know. He didn't know that she was seriously ill, that she was dying, and that she hoped they would have a long and happy life together. Just as she was about to confess her illness, he spoke. "I know everything. Your sister told me. Instead of just going to get flowers, I went to the hospital with your doctor. We've found people who can perform the surgery in Israel. I'll cover your flight, expenses, everything. Just go," he pleaded, dropping to his knees. Ashley was so stunned that she couldn't find her words. She helped him up, led him into the apartment, and hugged and kissed him fiercely. He handed her a plane ticket, and she realized she had to leave today. She was terrified. Everything was already paid for: the flight, the surgery, the lengthy recovery. It wasn't a guaranteed solution, but it was a real chance. Ashley felt like everything around her had dissolved. Only this apartment, her, and Ethan remained. "I've been looking for you for so long. We drifted apart, and I didn't even know you were in this city. When I found out you needed help, that you still loved me, I couldn't sit still. I was so scared it was too late, just like your sister said," he said with a smile. "We don't have time to talk anymore. Get ready. And don't be afraid to forget anything. Just make sure you take your documents." They quickly packed their belongings, and she descended to the car. She took one last look at the apartment's windows. She wouldn't return here for several long months of treatment, and if the operation didn't help, she would simply die in another country. The thought shook her. Then came a whirlwind of activity. The doctor said there's a real chance to fix everything. They've already found a donor, the best surgeon. Everything is in place. They're even preparing blood just in case something goes wrong. I'll be with you, do you hear me? I'll always be with you, he told her as they sat in the airport's waiting area. She felt his love and support. When the boarding for their flight was announced, her legs turned wobbly, her head spun, and that tangible fear resurfaced in her chest. She simply stood up and walked toward the gate, where they were supposed to board the plane. Once she took her seat and he sat down beside her, holding her hand, it became easier. Everything else seemed to fade into the background. 6 months passed since she had finally returned to her hometown. The surgery had been successful, and her recovery took even less time than she had expected. The Israeli doctors who had taken her in had unconditionally performed the operation, giving her a high chance of recovery. When the doctor approached her after the surgery and said it had gone well, assuring her she would live a long and happy life, she couldn't even cry. She just sat there, staring at a fixed point, tears streaming down her face. When she returned home, she felt relieved. Of course, she would have to continue taking medication for at least another 6 months, but those were minor concerns. The most important thing was that she was alive and healthy, and the man she loved was right there with her. They got married, officially becoming husband and wife. It turned out that when she left him to pursue her career, he had moved to another city to start his own business, which had become quite successful. All that time, he had loved her and never lost hope of finding her again. It was a true love story that they had not only preserved through time, but also through a serious illness. In the evenings, when they went to bed, Ashley felt somewhat anxious. Everything since her return had become different, as if she were learning to live anew. "Why are you so worried? Don't you want to live here? If you do, let's move," he said to her. But she shook her head negatively. "I want a pet. I've always wanted a dog, but I couldn't have one because I knew I would die. But now I want a dog," she said, and he chuckled. "Silly you. I thought it was something serious. Let's go and get you a dog." "You scared me. I thought you were worrying about something again," he said, embracing her before bedtime. She fell asleep almost instantly. When she found herself in that same old house where she had once lived with her grandmother, she realized she was dreaming again. She looked around for her grandmother, but the house was completely empty. Ashley walked through the kitchen where they used to cook pies and bake pastries together. Then she went a little further, passing through the living room where she and her grandmother used to knit. A pleasant smile appeared on her face as she immediately felt the atmosphere of those times. She went upstairs and entered her room, where she had been so happy once. She ran her hand along the rough wall where photographs used to hang. She remembered how she played here, read books, and played with the village cat, which adored her. "Ashley, my girl," her grandmother's voice came from somewhere on the first floor. Ashley remembered how her grandmother always called her to breakfast. She used to wake up with the first rays of the sun and start cooking. Ashley would wake up already smelling the aroma of fresh pancakes and fritters. It was so good and peaceful. "I'm coming, Grandma," Ashley said, as if understanding through her dream that all of this was just a dream. "Well, how has your life changed? I was so afraid you wouldn't come. Afraid you'd pick a different day, that you two wouldn't meet. Now I can leave with a peaceful heart," her grandmother said. She hugged her granddaughter and ran her hand through her soft hair. Ashley noticed that something had changed. Her grandmother seemed thinner, more transparent. Even her voice was now soft, silvery, as if the distant chime of bells. "How can I leave? Where should I go?" Ashley was frightened. "We'll all be there, my girl. The most important thing is that I saved you." I pulled you out of that abyss. Now it's time for me to go. Farewell, my girl, we'll meet again someday. Everything will be fine. Everything will definitely be fine for you, her grandmother said. She disappeared, as if she had been here just now and was now gone. Ashley blinked, and her grandmother disappeared. Everything around her became completely different. She felt simple and calm, without fear, without any excitement. Her grandmother had asked her to fetch that water from the well just so that Ashley could reunite with Ethan. When Ashley woke up in the morning, she told Ethan everything. She was afraid he would laugh at her, but he didn't. He just smiled at her. You know, sometimes my mom appears to me in dreams, and I consult with her. She helps me in my dreams. Are you afraid I'll make fun of you? I won't. No one can prove what happens to us after we die. Maybe it's true that our loved ones stay to help us, he said to her. At least, in this life, I'll always be grateful to your grandmother for leading you to the cemetery that day. What were you doing there? Ashley asked for the first time in a long time. She genuinely didn't know why he ended up at the cemetery. I've wanted to go there for a while, to check on my mother's grave. Besides, the village is abandoned. Who else would take care of it? I took everything I needed, got in my car, and went. I wanted to see her, he said with a smile. He embraced her with both arms and held her close. Every time he did that, she felt his protection. She hugged him back, and she felt lighter. It was so calm and pleasant. When there was a knock at the door, breaking the atmosphere, they exchanged glances and smiled. Ashley was the first to approach the door, but he suddenly stopped her. I think I know who it is, he said, and went to the door. He peered through the peephole and then opened the door, standing in front of his sister like a wall. I knew it. I knew you'd be here now, Julia exclaimed, looking at her brother. She bent down to see her sister. Aren't you satisfied now? You left your sister without a place to live. She survived. Look at her. The lucky one. And now, if you died, I would have lived in this apartment without a care in the world. But you survived. Ethan stepped out into the stairwell, closing the door behind him. He stood face to face with Julia, trying to convince himself that he shouldn't raise his hand. He felt an overwhelming sense of anger that his wife's own sister had said such things to her. He grabbed her by the shoulders and pulled her closer, positioning her face in front of his. He stared directly into her eyes. In those eyes, there was a blaze of fury and hatred. If you come here again, I will personally throw you down the stairs. You're an adult, figure out your own problems. Stop shifting the blame onto everyone else. Come here again, and I'll throw you out. She's your own sister. You should be happy that she's alive and well. You can't imagine what she's been through. Instead of crying and hugging her, saying how happy you are that she survived, you blamed her for it. Yes, how dare you? Let me talk to her. Julia squealed. No, she's my wife, and I will protect her. If you can't keep your tongue in check, if you can't just be happy for her happiness, I won't let you in. Get out of here, he said, letting her go. At first, she wanted to say something in response, but then she fell silent. He looked at her attentively but didn't say anything. Then she turned sharply and went down the stairs. He grinned, realizing that he had won. Everything else was already unimportant. The main thing was that he had shielded Ashley from another scandal, and Julia got what she deserved. He entered the apartment, suggested to his wife to order some food, watch a cheerful series, and she happily agreed. Happiness had returned to the apartment.